Good evening, all, and welcome to Kal-bardr's Corner as we continue our walk down this road to retention. I am Baron Kal-bardr Gellir, Companion of the Meridian Cross, Companion of the Argent Comet, Companion of the Compostela, and Reaper, coming to you live from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. As we guessed, Her Excellency Rahmut is still en route from an event this past weekend, so she's asked me to step in, and because of tonight's guest, it is truly my pleasure. For this episode, I guess it is Meridians all around. I am joined by a paragon of service and grace, someone who is still adjusting to her new title and will soon have another one to break in. Please welcome Duchess Ysmay of Branston, patent pending. Good evening, Your Grace.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on this show, Your Excellency.
Of course, and thank you. If you will, give us a little introduction, who you are, where you're from. I mean, I know you, but I think some of our viewers do not, so please.
No problem. I'm Ysmay of Branston. I started playing in the SCA in 2012 when my husband, well, at the time, we started dating, and he said, hey, I've got this really interesting hobby, and I need you to come check it out. It's kind of a deal breaker, you know, if I decided that I wasn't going to do it.
This is the thing. That's what we're doing, yeah.
So I started playing in 2012 and just fell in love. There's some things that I'd love to talk about throughout this show that really kept me involved. And I'm here in the Shire of Tyrbriss, which is in the middle of Meridies, Georgia area. And I'm so happy to be here.
Excellent.
Hello, everybody.
So we have some folks joining us. Folks from Meridies, somebody from Artemisia, and from one of our viewers from Locock. It is so. Good morning to Locock out there. That's the weirdest thing, honestly. We were talking a little bit before the show about the digital world and things, and that's one of the weirdest parts of it for me. Is when I found out I had people from frigging Australia and New Zealand watching these shows. Cool, I love it. That's the SCA right there.
Awesome service.
I know. I just, it's a weird, and I love it. Oh, I'm sorry, Cheryl, you're in the West. Artemisia West, out there. Well, frankly, once you get past Glen Albin, it's all the same to me, and I'll say that, and Sean will hit me later. So, anywho, so Ysmay, welcome. I as I mentioned, you had a really good day recently, and a soon to be good day. Congratulations on your pelicaning coming up.
Thank you. It was God, that caught me way off guard. Like it should, right? You shouldn't have any idea that was going to happen, but certainly was.
I got to say, it was really cool for me to watch. I was towards the back when they said it, so I turned and I was nearish so I could see your initial reaction, and that was cool. And then watching the reaction up at the front with Elizabeth and Elowen and all that, it was. I was crying, you were crying, we were all crying. So
it's honestly a blur. I think that Maris told me that she was glad that she was holding me up, because when I heard my name, like my knees kind of buckled a little bit. And and then I remember seeing my husband, and it's just I don't remember a lot that was said. I just was like, wow, okay, this is happening.
It's a thing. There you go. I definitely deserving. Your reign as queen, notwithstanding it itself was amazing, but you've done amazing work before that, and that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight. So, I guess let's jump right into it. So the show's about retention, right? We talk about retention and recruitment and sort of the getting people here and keeping people around. It's definitely two stages of what we should all strive to help with in the SCA. So I guess let's start with what is your part? What is your role in retention?
So I have these two really cool initiatives that were started here in Meridies. I'm going to start talking about one, and then I'll tell you about the other one. My husband and I, in Tyrbriss, we are part of this group that hosts kind of an inter-kingdom war. It's actually supposed to be small. It's not inter-kingdom. It's supposed to be just Meridies, but we have a lot of people that come. It's smaller than Gulf Wars, obviously, but still a pretty large event. We usually get about 700 to 800 people. And I just got this really crazy idea that maybe people that were new, instead of camping in open camping, might like a place to camp. And so I suggested to my husband and my best friend, Countess Dalla, that we could host a newcomers camp. And they agreed, whether they wanted to or not. And we made a plan for a newcomers feast on Saturday night. We had, I cannot remember if His Grace Adamar was king at the time or prince, but he stopped by with his consort. They sang for the crowd, just kind of interacted with all these new people who it might have been like their first or second, maybe not new, but new enough that they didn't have a place to camp.
Right.
And that was really, really cool. That was kind of what started our whole idea to continue doing stuff. So every year we try. We didn't get to do it for this last Castle Wars, but for the 2 big wars in Meridies, we host a newcomers camp. And we have some really cool newcomer classes. They're not really newcomer. It's kind of geared towards new stuff. So it could be like your first make and take or protocol and precedence, things that a newcomer are really going to need to use if they're going to stick around. Plus, we just have a good time. We like to, invite other people. We usually host with the help of House Excelsior, which has wonderful ambiance, and it kind of brings this like magic for a newer person to be involved with.
That is an understatement, in my opinion. I will speak highly of Sir Joffrey and all the folks that help with Excelsior Camp. There is never a time where you cannot find them and just walk in and go, this is what that medieval moment's supposed to feel like. So that as a backdrop for a lot of what you're doing is it's a great choice. I mean,
right.
you sort of had the lucky in there, but it's definitely not a bad plan.
And so, that whole group is helpful.
Yeah.
Like they're supportive in our efforts. So
that's very true. So the newcomers camp, I gotta say, I stopped by a couple times, and I actually taught a class this past Castle Wars for it. I think it's a great idea, and it's one of the things that, whereas it's called a newcomers camp, right? It's definitely for those newcomers, whether you're a returner or a newcomer or need a refresher, right? I know we joked. So I taught a heraldry class at the Castle Wars, and we ended up being mostly older people sitting around, but then we ended up talking about what newcomers would need for heraldry, and they made it a newcomer heraldry class, but with older people sitting around talking about it. So it really neat little juxtaposition there. But
that's cool.
I think that's something that I think. What's that?
You can always learn stuff.
Right. Well, and looking at it from the different perspectives of, like, I mean, I had, Dala, you mentioned Dala and His Majesty James sitting there, and Tim and a couple others. So we had a wide range of experience levels sitting around. And I honestly, like I said, I was sitting there being the new guy in the crowd, even with this, was funny. And getting to sort of discuss that and see what those newcomers would need, or sort of what things they might want to talk about, or from people who had served as crown, what they had seen during their time was really interesting. I think your newcomers camp is really cool because it's a welcoming place for those who don't have a place, and that's something that I've seen all across our kingdom, and I know it happens in other places where you have the kingdom lands. Sometimes you have your barony, your shire group lands in various places, but so there's people who don't even have those, and having something that's a central point, maybe not for camping, but even just for, hey, come talk to us, come here if you need something, is amazing. I think that's a great plan as a starting point, right?
As a segue to that, it's a great way to keep people involved. If you give them a role, sometimes that's something that they need. So for instance, Countess Dala started reaching out to people to do cool things with the newcomers camp for some of the newer people. And you had the knights decide that they were going to host the feast one year, and we had Sable Sword host a feast one year. The grant level fighting order here. We have a thing called Templar tours. So a bunch of the Templars get together and they walk all the newcomers around and kind of introduce them to people. And that is a really important part of retention, is making somebody feel welcome and making them get involved in the actual activities.
Right. When so often we talk about recruitment, right, and we see the initial like let's do newcomer stuff, and yay, and here's a cup, and here's a hat, and yay, and your first event's free, and all this stuff. and that's it. That's where it stops. We never engage past that, and that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not to speak ill of any of our crowns or any things we've done. It's an amazing service we provide our newcomers, but it's not enough to retain them, right? If that's a day one, yay shiny, but it doesn't help keep them around. So things like, the Templar tours and the classes and the ideas helps them get engaged and find their niche that they may not find, because especially your first event, you're like, it's all a lot, but you getting that one introduction during that tour may be the thing that keeps them here.
Right. So, and then the other initiative that we have here in Meridies is also with my best friend, Countess Dalla. We came up with a group called Welcome Home. Mm-hmm. And this came off of going to a panhandle skirmishes down in Florida. We were starting to talk about doing the Newcomers Camp, and we saw this little bucket of drinks on the side, and it said Tim and Jen's Newcomer Fund. And they had a whole bunch of sodas on the side and then a bucket. And we found out through talking with some of the other people that they basically reimbursed the event fees for newcomers using that. So out of that was born Welcome Home. And then, so we do that and through the generosity of people in the kingdom, we do fundraisers to keep people involved. And I think that also helps. I know that seems kind of weird, but it also helps with retention for those new people to understand that there is so much generosity in the SCA that people are willing to pay for your first event. And they may not know how it happened, but they'll find out if they stick around. And then we decided, so this is this weird thing. I don't know if you have ever heard of someone having a similar experience, but I happened to talk to a friend or an acquaintance of mine, and they told me that their first event at a small place, they had gorgeous garb because they were a costumer, and so you couldn't tell that they were new. And somebody came up to them, they were getting on the elevator, and the queen or some royal was getting on the elevator at the same time. And the retinue kind of like shook their finger at my friend and was like, "Hey, don't you know who this is?" And my friend was like, "I have no idea. This is my first event. I'm so sorry." So after she told me that, I was like, man, that's really terrible. I think that there's got to be a way to try to help maybe people that are new or newer feel more welcome. And so then the Newcomers badge was born, and that's all. It all kind of like ties together. It's a badge that we have gotten passed at society level, that you can leave little tokens at Troll, and if they're new and they want to grab one, they can. It's not mandatory. It kind of helps people identify, hey, that's a new person. We the last Gulf Wars that we did, we put some up there and we started seeing them being worn at Gulf Wars. And it was really cool because you could be like, hey, is this your first Gulf Wars? Try to engage the person in conversation. And again, that all goes back to like just making them feel welcome is going to help keep people in the picture. If they have a terrible experience from the start. Right. So
we've heard about it. And so it's something that one of the benefits of this channel is I've heard a lot of the stories, both on and off air, from various people. So a lot of stuff with Ask the Knights, we talked about that. It was one of the questions that Logan always asked was, tell me about a bad experience. I have one of those coming up for you here in a minute too, but you hear about that a lot where people have a bad experience and then don't come back for 10 years. So we've lost 10 years of them playing now because of one bad experience. Right. And that's, obviously we all want to be engaging. I think that's a thing that a lot of us strive to do, but it is harder to know who to target because I know I would feel really stupid if I walked up to you, for instance, if I saw you walk up at a T-Tunic and didn't know you and you didn't have your fancy hat on and be like, oh, hey, is this your first event? What's going on? And you're like, I'm a Duchess. I've been around a couple times, bro. Like, you go like, what? Although admittedly, I figured you would just probably play along and let me just tour you around for a bit and be like, what are you doing, Kal? I'm like, oh, it's this, mate. What's going on? But that's I know I have trouble doing that. I don't want to engage that because I know I'm going to do that one time. It's going to happen. The Newcomers badges are amazing. So actually, I hate I don't have one because there's some sitting in my garage right now. And because Kisa, my girlfriend, is our Osprey Shadowlane, so we have some of them sitting out there because we have leftover from Galalob. So I was reaching around hoping I had one, but I don't. So yeah, they're little neat belt tokens, and I think that I know there was some initial pushback on them because anything that somebody wears becomes a target, and there's now we got the bullying thing to discuss, right? And yes, that is a thing, but it's something that because it's voluntary, especially, I've seen so much good come out of it. I know at Galoff, actually, we had some of our newcomers wear them, and because of that, yeah, they were a target. But hold on, my door opened. Haha, it's magic. Oh, cool. I knew they were here somewhere. So yeah, there you go. There is the little belt tokens there. And it's just a little thing that it takes nothing to make it, but. We had some of the newcomers wearing these at Gadalop, and they became a target for a lot of like the Templars were there and a couple others were there that we got to go up and engage with them, and they had just a blast of a time because of that. Now I'm not saying that this badge did all of that, but we also have some amazing people here in Meridies, and that doesn't hurt. So
well, it definitely opened a door. I'm sure there's some people that probably wouldn't have, like you said yourself. It sometimes might be hard for you to go talk to somebody and not. Knowing whether they're new or not. So,
especially because I've seen some new people with some really amazing garb. Let me just say that too. We have some. I know at Castle Wars actually we had a newcomer who was a costumer. Like she does historical costuming, so she showed up in like Laurel level garb, but it was her first event. And you're like, well, now I'm confused. Okay, what do you do with that? So yeah. The Welcome Home initiative is another one that, and so you guys have Welcome Home. I know Her Excellency Jessica of Osprey has the Osprey Newcomers Fund, and then so there's a couple others that have popped up around, and they're all very similar initiatives that work together. And I think it's an amazing thing to see. And I know at one point you guys were like, we have too much money. We're trying to bring newcomers in, and that's never a bad thing to have.
We actually were able to start taking people and doing reimbursements for their first Gulf Wars, which was cool. Wow. We had people, we did it for the last two or three in-person Gulf Wars. People submitted a name and why they felt like this person should be given it. And we did two, and Jessica of Osprey did one. And so we were able to get somebody their first experience at Gulf Wars, which is really cool.
That's something, right? Because and weekend events are amazing, but Gulf Wars is a whole nother level of amazing. So that's cool. And a lot of that you got to do and launch and stuff, especially being queen, didn't hurt some of those initiatives, right? Having that power, and I think using that power is truly I think the purpose of it, right? If I think being crowned, that's one of the things you really get to do is launch those things we all can do as people, but having the crown definitely doesn't hurt those initiatives move forward.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, the Newcomers badge came, I think, while after my husband won the first crown. I think that the idea was there, but we weren't sure, and we were like kind of like you had mentioned, we were kind of getting a little bit, I don't think we can do this. So we had to really jump through a few hoops to make sure that it was going to be okay. We got the okay, and then he won crown list, and then so I was still wanting to push it forward, because I thought it was a good idea. It didn't matter what role what hat I had on. So.
Right. Yeah. All right. So we talked about bad experiences before, and so actually, and I'll point this out because this is really cool. So, wrong one. There it is. As like the awful double peer as of this weekend. Bad experience drove him away 15 years ago for 15 years. So there you go. So there's someone who is now a double peer in the society. Single bad experience, some bad experiences, right? I know in the crowd we can find dozens of those experiences.
Yeah. But we're glad that you came back and continued to do stuff. And obviously, you've got some skill and you've been recognized for it. So I've had as like on experience. He's out in Artemisia, both a magician and an amazing autocrat. So I think those two things go well together. Apparently, apparently sleight of hand and sleight of spreadsheet. I guess I don't know.
So a question from Aslak, though. Is the Newcomers badge available for other kingdoms?
It totally is. We shared that with Onstiora down in for Gulf Wars and kind of touched base. That was back in 2018. Was that the last Gulf Wars? 2019. 2019 was the last.
2019, yeah. That's just sad. Let's be sad about that for a second and then go, okay, March is coming soon.
It is.
Good.
3 months. But yeah, we talked with their Kingdom Chatelaine down there. Whenever we did a class at Gulf Wars about the badge and what you can do with it, and may try to do another class coming up at Gulf Wars this year. We'll see, but it's available for anybody to use. It's registered, under our name, but it's a newcomer's badge. So,
and so speaking from the heraldic side, that's generally how badges function. Whoever owns the badge gets to dictate how it's being used. As in this case, it has been open. So, if you need to reach out if you want to reach out to me, I'll get that connection made so you have that detail. So there you go. We'll take the newcomer's badge to Artemisia.
Heck
Now, I know your crown will not mind that, so we're good there. So. All right, so back to bad experiences. Ysmay, I know you said you started 2012, so only 9-ish years. I think your most recent bad experience was, let's just say, COVID. So before that. Tell us about a bad experience for you. What is maybe one you dealt with early on?
Okay. There was an event that I went to, and there might have been some Jello shots involved. I don't know. But my friend and I were walking back from this gathering, and we were kind of loud for, like you do at a big war. And we walked into our camp, and there was a bardic circle going on, and somebody yelled at us for being too loud in my camp. And I was really frustrated because I was like, this is my camp. You can't tell me what to do. But then, my husband was like, let's try to rethink this, and we ended up becoming good friends. It was just the tone and the bite was not really intended from this person. They weren't trying to be, very aggressive with me, even though it came off that way when I was in the moment. So right. I feel like, especially for that friend of mine, I feel like that retinue person was probably trying to just do, a nice thing, or to do the appropriate thing that you would do as a retinue for your king or queen, and didn't mean to come off the way that they did, but it was a big turnoff for my friend. So thankfully she stayed around, and I've stayed around even though I had that experience. But I know that that kind of stuff happens to everybody.
Right. And that's definitely the case. I know it's tough, especially when you're trying to act in the moment to fix a problem, right? It's something that anybody who knows me knows I've stepped on that line 1,000 times now. It's really hard to remember the gentility, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess what is from you a piece of advice about that? So how do you sort of deal with that? Maybe when you were crown, or as now as a soon to be peer of the society, what is your advice for that?
That's a very good question, Kal.
Welcome. Thanks. I can.
This might sound really corny, but maybe like anything that you do with a smile sounds a whole lot better. So if you can say something while you're smiling, or have a conversation and be smiling, your conversation, for the most part, from what I can say, is going to go better than if you're frowning, or if you're being loud with a person. A smile will always be something that changes the tone.
I like that. Good. Well, you took that bus and just rerouted it. I'm impressed. There you go.
Did you ever have a bad experience?
So constantly a little bit. So we actually we took 10 years off. So that's most of my taking time off was because of my wife. Medical problems. But my bad experience has been local politics. It's been intergroup, interkingdom politics, and unfortunately, where we are. So I'm on the coast of Meridies. Very, I'm not gonna say I'm secluded from the rest of the kingdom, but there's an hour either direction of the next group, and I know all of Artemisia just went an hour, that's all you've got. I know Artemisia, you have giant lands out there. I get it. But the next closest group is 3 or 4 hours away. It's hard for us to really branch out outside of our local group. So that was our biggest thing. And one of the things that I did was to realize that I don't have to deal with that. Right. There's more than just this little bit of Meridies down here to deal with and to grow into. Finding people, Tim and Joffrey and the rest of House Excelsior and yourself and others that were doing things on a kingdom level. And I was like, okay, there's what we can do. Here's where I can grow. And then, this whole thing happened and now I'm outside of that. But it made me realize that the world's a lot bigger. And I know others here in Meridies have had that same sort of reckoning as well. And initially had some bad rap for it and then have grown from it. So
that's cool. I'm glad it's always good to also be able to kind of look in and say, how can I make this better?
Right.
And you definitely have.
It's an hour to mailbox.
Holy cow. All right. You win.
I've been out there now and there's a lot of land. It's a lot of big flat nothingness out there. Utah's a big state, so I get it. So, but I mean, for her, I think I'm 6 hours from you, and it's another 4 or 5 hours to the edge of the kingdom. So we've got a lot of room down here, And when our crown, I'm on literally the furthest south, furthest west point of the kingdom. You can't go any further without hitting water or Glenalbin. Right. It's tough when you have a crown that's in Tennessee, or in those areas to be involved more on that kingdom level. So. That's definitely that. So fortunately with the digital age, and I won't say I appreciate what COVID did for us, but I'm not mad about it. I hate all that. COVID's a terrible thing, and the pandemic has sucked, but I think it is definitely.
And made lemonade.
That's right. Yeah, there's definitely some lemonade been made here, so I'm not mad about that. All right, so it's back on a positive thing. Thank you for that question, by the way. That was nice. I don't often get interviewed on my own shows there. So when you're dealing with the newcomers, right, and to I think we've talked about that, the idea of keeping them engaged, right, getting them engaged is what leads to retention. How do you do that? How do you draw out their passions? How do you get them engaged in those conversations other than just hey, here's a cool thing? What's your what's your guidebook there?
I don't have one. I just kind of I'm grateful for all of the experiences that I've had so far that have allowed me to meet so many people that do so many things. And so if I kind of will start to talk to them and just see what their interests are. Do you like art? And I'll just start naming some stuff off. And then, I might, if they're local to me, I might say, hey, I'm doing a silk banner making class. Come by my house. Let me show you how to do this. And then we get a big group of people, or we do weaving nights. And so just trying to let them touch a little bit of everything. I am not this is a weird, I'm not saying a lot of fighters only fight, but many of them, that's their passion. And they came into the SCA to fight. I came into the SCA with my boyfriend at the time and came to do I don't know what. I had no idea what I was doing. So I dabbled and I've met a lot of people that do a lot of things. And so I just think that's, if you don't know, if I come to you and I say, hey, what is your interest? Fighting. Cool. Let me introduce you to some people. Yeah. But if you come in and you don't know, then I'll try to kind of pick a little. And then another thing that I think is important to remember is that retention doesn't just have to do with new people. It can be with someone that moves into the kingdom from out of kingdom and they are feeling very out of sorts. They don't know anybody. They come to their first event. I think MGT, there was a knight that moved in during COVID. And so he was with Sir Ranver, and I noticed that he was over there. And so I walked over there and started talking to him. He turns out he wears a hat and outfit just like Sir Joffrey. So it was I thought it was Joffrey when I first went over there. And then I found out it was that. Same. But after I started talking to him, he was a very nice guy. And I hope that just a little interaction. And then anybody that would come over, I would kind of introduce them. Or like some of the other nights, I'm like, hey, have you guys met him? He's, he came in from out of Kingdom and this is his first Meridian event, and go talk to him, go hit him with a stick, So the retention aspect, if you don't feel welcome when you move in, gosh, that's got to be a challenging thing for those people. So.
And that makes a really good point. And I think so often we talk about retention with newcomers, like that's the thing, and or somebody coming back after a thing. It's those that are coming back off of a long stretch away, or coming from out of Kingdom, or especially I've seen a lot of discussion recently on some of the proteges groups about well, my service is now moot because I'm leaving Kingdom, right? That's always the fear. So there's a new thing. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wow, that's a really very real problem for people who don't who play within their kingdom but don't ever get outside of that and don't have contacts outside of that. That'd be tough. So having some focus within the various programs, the Newcomers Camp, right? Looks like it's geared to newcomers, but newcomers to the kingdom is the thing, right? That's a very real thing. And I know some of the classes like that. That's something to consider when you're looking at those things. Like, is if I was someone showing up to my first Meridian event versus, and I'm a 20-year veteran, what do I need to know here? What's different here?
That's
right.
Hey, you want to teach class?
There you go. And so much of that is interkingdom anthropology, right? When I went out to Artemisia, I saw so much of that. That's like, this is a different world. It's the SCA, so it looks like the same on the surface, but so much of that beneath the surface stuff is drastically different. Things like circlets in AOA GOA circlets, like that was just a weird thing to not see that because they don't do that there.
Really?
Oh yeah. So I actually, and that's I joked with Her Majesty Nisa. She fussed at me with my first night there for wearing my circlet because I show up in my Meridian stuff wearing my Meridian circlet, and they're like, "Hey, you don't wear those here," and I was like, "But I do. This is the thing I do." And they gave this to me. I'm gonna wear it.
Right.
But nobody else was. So I was the only non-noble, non-baron or higher wearing any kind of metal headgear. That was weird, And fortunately, I was sitting there with the princess at the time, so I wasn't out of pocket. But if I had just happened to come by on work and showed up at that event, I would have felt out of place. It would have been odd. So I think having somebody like that's a point of contact, so that local shadow lane can be more than just the newcomers.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I have some great experiences.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So let's talk about good stuff. What you got, Ysmay?
Gosh, one of my favorite experiences that I had was my very first experience with a royal. We were camping. I think it was Fool's War. It was either Fool's War or Castle Wars because we were out at the Lake Tobo site. And the event was over. Everybody's kind of packing up. And over walks the Queen, Her Majesty Talina. And she says, "You must be Timothy's lady. I'm Talina." Or no, and I was just like, like caught dead. And she made a huge impression on me that, royals can be cool people, right. And they can be welcoming, and she definitely laid the impact or the groundwork for me in the SCA, because again, sometimes having a bad experience can do the exact opposite. I was lucky not to, I really have only had that one bad experience. I've had a couple other ones where somebody got really drunk, and I'm a medical professional, so then all of a sudden I get called over to deal with such and such, and so those types of things. But that's not a bad experience to me. The good experiences far outweigh the bad. Right. As a royal, getting to meet all the amazing people, getting to see their faces, that's truly something. Like, I would almost suggest every person to try to at least be a retainer one time during court, because you get to stand back there and see the faces of people, their genuine surprise, their heart just melting as they're, getting told how awesome they are and the award that they're receiving. So that's a really cool part. That's one of my favorites. Favorite things about being a royal. Being a regular person, I just like to go out and socialize. I'm a big like flitter, so I'll go here and here.
The word is social butterfly, Your Grace. That's the word.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you got it. So I just like to meet new people and have fun. And I think that's something that is really important as well, is trying to just preach that to people. This is all about having fun.
Right. That's something I've heard a lot over the last 6 months as we've started kicking back up into events again. Is people are getting used to it, but the thing is, are you having fun?
Mm-hmm.
That's what, are you having fun? That's the question I've heard a couple dozen times now, and I think we need to remember that. We need to remember, and that's from the newcomer up to that person that's getting burned out, right? So burnout's a thing I've done a whole show on that, and if you're having fun, you don't get burned out, at least not as easily. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but it can still happen.
And then that's another part to try to help these people get back in, is if you notice that maybe that if you're trying to help with retention in the SCA, whether you're a chatelaine or not, if you notice that someone's kind of going down one of those paths, maybe try to get them out of their shell. If they're a fighter and they've been fighting for 10 years and then took 10 years off, they're probably going to be really rusty. And then when they come back, they're going to feel kind of bad about where their fighting was from one place, or maybe they're older and they can't really fight as well. Same thing with a lot of other things. If you're taking breaks, sometimes just kind of redirecting their energy might be a good way to get them to fall in love again.
Right. Yeah. I think changing a path, right? If you've been on the same road for a while and that, leading to burnout, just that little shift from service into an art or from art to a different art. I'm not saying stop your art altogether, but try a new thing, break out of your shell. If you've always autocrated, try not autocrating for a weekend. Crazy thought, I know, but or if you've been crowned for 700 and something days, take a break, have a party, enjoy your life for a little bit.
Amen. 700 days, that's a long time.
Well, having talked to a lot of the other the COVID crowns, the plague crowns as they were, I think all of you are sort of in the same boat of I love this job. I'm done with it though. I'm sick of this. And that's because of burnout, right? And in that case, you don't really have a choice. You sort of were locked there, right? The rest of us all have choices. I think that's an important thing to remember to look when you're looking at retention. Is we all have a choice to be here. We all made the conscious decision to show up and put on the silly hats and the silly garb and come to this event. Are you doing that for the right reason, right?
Absolutely.
And I know something I've had to remember a lot of is I don't have to be the one to do it. And that's a hard thing because I want to do the things, but you don't have to be the one to do the thing. Other people will do the thing if you don't show up to do the thing.
That's
I think that was something I realized that when I didn't show up for a thing or something didn't happen, I couldn't do it. And the thing got done. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. I don't actually need to be here. I can remember that now and actually enjoy it versus having to be there.
Yes. And Runa, I think learning to camp is very hard, especially when you've had a 2-year hiatus from doing it. So getting back in the swing of things is definitely not an easy thing. But there are some tools that you can use to help make it a little bit easier, such as bringing, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, bring your own toilet in your tent.
You can say toilet on the channel. Toilet is allowed, Ysmay. You're fine.
That has nothing to do with retention, but it will make your life a lot easier when you're camping.
I don't know. Actually, I want to stay around. If I have a functioning good toilet, that makes me want to stay. Therefore, I am retained. I think perfect.
You'll have to leave and go to the porta potty at 4:00 in the morning. So it works. It works out very well. All right, you had something else lined up. What was the?
No, I threw up the comment from Kisa from this past virtual court. She was distraught. Let me say, she's like, "Wait, Tim and Ysmay aren't going to be there. I don't know how to deal with this. This is weird." So
we are very lucky that we got a crown, a set of heirs behind us that had done it before. And not to say that someone else wouldn't have filled that role very well, but it's way different. So being able to have that experience there, and they're fantastic. Anytime Her Majesty talks to you, she's talking to you. Like she's very, very, very involved in a conversation, and that's helpful.
I think that's a impact of important people, right? Whether royals or peers or even the unlanded and landed nobility. One of the things that I think is important for retention for those that we bucket people in the categories that we have the first eventer, the first couple of eventers, the 1 year, the 2 to 5 year, like there's sort of ranges, right? The 1 year is still shiny. It's all so pretty. They haven't seen behind the curtains yet, right? That 2 to 5 is the harder range because people have probably seen behind the curtain. They've served on a retinue. They've seen the bad side. They've been yelled at by somebody. They've had that bad experience. Maybe clearly not enough to run them off yet, but enough.
Right.
Something that anybody with any kind of title or hat can do is paying attention and being that person for that person that day is so important. And I didn't realize, I guess, the impact of that, right? Until you start noticing royals that do more of that. Because you have royals that aren't as good at it. The fighter fights and he's good at fighting, but isn't as good at being crowned or isn't as good at being that person. And then you have people that are way better at that. And you're like, oh, that's what they need to do. That's what we need from our nobles, especially like landed nobility is amazing at that. We all should be Chatelaines, but when you have a target on your head, quite literally, it helps, like you're more obvious. And you're right. Her Majesty of Thorcotla does an amazing job at that.
You're absolutely right about the 2 to 5 year. I think that 2 to 5 years is when they're really deciding if they want to stick around and continue to do this. And then after 5 years, that's to me when the burnout can start for people because they've been doing something and dedicating a lot of time and energy into something. 5 years is a lot of time to be working on something. I mean, you can get a bachelor's degree in 5 years, or less than that, hopefully. So the amount of time and effort and money that people put in at that point, I think it's something that we really need to start paying attention to, how to make sure that those people are staying in. And I mean, maybe some of them don't need to stay in. Maybe their, attitudes are toxic and it's going to make it a little bit tougher for the people around them to stay in if they stay in. So there's always that, do we need to focus a lot of energy on this person? But the 2 to 5 year time frame is a big make or break time period, I think. So you're absolutely right. You hit it right on the head.
Yeah, it's something I think our very first episode we touched on that. Magister Bree sort of broke it down from a psychological perspective and sort of went through those buckets. And I never considered that breakdown, but it's that slot of the SCA is very important. And I think it's one we miss because especially and Meridies does a better job, I think, of that because we have that grant level. We have the secondary. A lot of kings don't have they have an AOA level, they have a peerage level, they don't have a grant level.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's something I found. There was wait, you guys have grant orders? I was like, dude, that's because there's a stopping point, right? And I think that's where that 2 to 5 year thing comes in. Is you have that you're past your initial set, but you're not quite to peerage where you at, and things like that help. I'm not saying that the award is all it's for, but that recognition level is important in sort of keeping people engaged on their various paths, or which paths they're on is, I know, helpful.
Absolutely. Karina had put a message about for members moving to the other kingdoms. I think that's a great idea. If we, unfortunately, if people are moving, sometimes they just have a lot of stuff going on and maybe they forget to do that. So I think also the flip side of that could be that the local chatelaine reach out to that person and say, hey, this is when our fighter practices, send them a letter. There was Madame Cynthia DuPont here in Meridies. She used to, I think she still does it, but we haven't been playing for roughly 2 years. So she would send out a welcome packet to people. And I don't think she just did it to brand new people. I think she did it to anybody that was new coming into the kingdom. So I think both are equally important. And for the newer person moving into the kingdom that's been in the SCA, hopefully they can remember to message the local folks and say, hey,
say hi. Yeah. Well, and so I'm really curious to what because I think that's a great plan, especially for people who are on various paths, right? So if you have a peer and you're moving out of kingdom, I think as that peer, reach out to the other to the circle the person is moving into, reach out to their baronies to help keep them on their path. I think that's an important point. If they're in a barony and they're moving out as the landed nobility, if you've got the time, reach out. I think that's where those of us who are in those spots can help out. Mm-hmm. Or if you just know somebody's moving and you don't like I know they're moving, but our crown doesn't, reach out to the crown, let them know, or reach out to the new crown. I think that's any of us can do that. But if you're in one of those seats, reach out to the other folks in those seats and help, because I think that can help a tremendous amount to give them somebody to talk to, especially if they don't think to reach out to the Chatelaine, or maybe they don't have a current Chatelaine. Right. That's always a thing. Or
the webpage is down.
Right.
Technology sometimes doesn't work for us. I don't know.
Right. Which credit to Ian, man. Our Kingdom Web Minister is top notch in Meridies. Like I've seen the struggle he goes through, and man, kudos to that man. Especially within the last few years, virtual SCA is a thing, and that webpage is so important for what we do. And him and his whole team have done a great job.
He is awesome. He really is.
So, all right. We've covered a lot of stuff. Let's see. So you've mentioned, because I know you have a shout out later, but you mentioned Dala a couple times. I want to say, Hercules Dala is an amazing figure. We actually invited her on the show tonight, and we had invited her on before, and couldn't make the scheduling work out. But I know for you, I very rarely hear Ysmay without hearing Dala behind it. The two of you are a powerhouse. Tell us a little bit about her, and sort of maybe some other stuff about her. We might want to know about things that she does with retention.
So her and I work very closely together for everything in the SCA. She's probably one of the big, aside from my spouse being in the SCA and me wanting to stay involved, but being able to go hang out with her was a big thing for me early on to continue doing stuff in the SCA at the level that we were doing it. Mm-hmm. And so she was actually in the SCA as a child down in Trimaris, and then moved around a few places, stopped doing SCA for 10, 15 years. I have no idea why. I think it was because she was just busy in school and decided to start back up again. And she is an amazing person, just full of life and full of energy. And she would definitely be someone I would shout out, but it's like you said, we kind of go hand in hand with each other, just as far as people, when they hear Ysmay, they think Dala as well. And sometimes, most of the time, vice versa for Dala and Ysmay. So
I love so anybody who met Dala, if you ever seen a county cornet with lights inside it, you probably have seen Dala running around, because it's always I enjoy watching the parties and sort of watching her move around, because you could always find her usually because of the lights.
I always tell her to turn her lights off because she likes the blinking ones, and I'm like, Dala, you're gonna give me a seizure. I'm gonna have an epileptic seizure right now. So if I'm with her, she won't do the blinking. She just turns on the one thing. But if she goes off on her own, which we do separate, if she goes off on her own, she turns those blinkers on every time.
So,
it's all about having fun, though.
Right.
We're back to that.
Yep. And I think having seen her, I haven't seen the blinking lights yet, so I got to start watching her when she's not with you, see if I get the blinking lights. But unicorn onesies and glow sticks, and having fun in the SCA is important, even when you're a crown or past crown. I think it's just all about what it is. So, all right, I'm going to do a little bit of we're actually nearing an hour. Time flies. I'm gonna do a couple of show things, and then we'll do some shout outs and some wrap ups. How about that?
Sounds good.
Let's see. There's the Ysmay Dala is its own brand. There you go.
Hi, Pierce.
Yep, I see Baron Piers out there. Love the twinkling, blinking coronet lights. That is, y'all are fun, man. I gotta say, and actually, and I'm gonna thank both you and Her Excellency Dala for me personally. This is Kal speaking to Ysmay. You've reached out to Akisa, my lady Akisa. She was not enjoying the SCA. The SCA is a weird place for those, especially coming back with me and Sifa being 10-year veterans or 5-year veterans kind of thing, and her coming as a brand new person. The two of you turned around a bad experience for her.
That's
so
awesome.
I want to thank you for that.
Aw, Isa.
She loves you guys. It's a thing. So
that's awesome.
Wow. All right, show stuff. So coming up next on Kal-bardr's Corner. So next Sunday I will be joined by a beast from the West Kingdom, returning to the Kal-bardr's Corner, Her Grace Sir Helga. So this episode of Coffee with Kal is going to talk about being yourself. So the SCA is a weird place, and we often end up putting on a facade behind our names. And the Helga put out a post that really struck home with me, and I want to talk to her about that. So we're going to talk about the idea of really just being who you are, that your persona is you, and to embrace that. So happy to have Helga back on. Happy to close out the year with her in style. And then, so we'll take the following Sunday, we'll take off because it is like the day after Christmas. But before that, I don't have a graphic up yet, but the Thursday before that, so the 23rd, or Christmas Adam around my house, we're going to have the Kal-bardr's Corner, or KK Productions Holiday Special. Yes, it will be just as bad as the Family Guy Holiday Special, I promise. We're going to have a lot of the past hosts on. Keith and I are going to be Thirsty Thursday, Meridies tradition here. We're going to be drinking mead and having fun and just sort of recapping last 2 years, now, of Kal-bardr's Corner and enjoying our past hosts, sort of catching up a bit. So tune in for that on the 23rd. And then the first Sunday of the year, we mentioned him earlier, and we mentioned actually the post earlier, but we're joined by His Majesty James the Holy, talking about transparency and openness. I think as a peer, this is important. As a royal, sitting royal, it's important, and he has just been a powerhouse of just talking about his experience in the SCA currently. So I'm looking forward to him. He and I got to catch up at Castle Wars and just sort of chat. And man, just the knowledge from that man, just about the game and as a punk rocker in this sort of very regal society, he has some experiences. I'm looking forward to just having that chat with him. So tune in for that to start the new year out.
And he's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I had met him through Ask Nights Live, sort of in passing, helping Logan out, and I knew the name. Everybody hears Duke James the Holy. That's a name around this area. And then I finally got to sit down with him at Castle Wars and just have a chat, and it was like, man, this is a dude who knows some stuff, and I'm excited. And he and I have some stuff in common with gastric surgeries and some other things like that as well. So we clicked off of that, but he's got some deep thoughts. It's funny having him and Helga back to back. For me, I don't know if I can handle it. It's a lot of thinky thoughts in a 2-week period. But
you're gonna do fine. His wife. So James the Holy's wife. She started when we were. It was Gulf Wars 2018, because that's when we were king and queen. She started a wave as the queen of Glenavon. It was so fun, and I just thought, this is how you make people have fun in the SCA. You have fun. So they're really cool people.
Yeah, and with Glenavon having their all hail already, it's really easy for them to have fun over there. Let's see. And of course, last but not least, if you want to support Kal-bardr's Corner and KK Productions, look us up on Patreon, patreon.com/KK Productions, and join the grand wall of patrons. We have some amazing rewards out there, and just to support the channel. Check us out on Redbubble, search KK Productions, or check me out on TikTok at Kal-bardr. And of course, our regular host Rahmut at Gina Kitts. Our TikToks are full of ridiculousness, and I think that's what TikTok's supposed to be. So enjoy the ridiculousness out there. All right. So I think that's all I've got coming up. Good God, that was a lot of things. Shout outs for people. So one of the things that Rahmut does on this show that I think is just great and is let's lift each other up. So Ysmay, who do you have as a shout out tonight? Tell us about an amazing person.
Can I do more than one?
Oh, please do.
Okay. The first person I want to do is our Kingdom Shadowlane right now. His name is Lord Erland, and he has kind of taken the reins for the Kingdom Shadowlane, and he's got great ideas. He's mobility challenged, so sometimes that can be difficult to attend events with, but he is doing some really great things in the Kingdom of Meridies, and I'm looking forward to him trying to help us continue our efforts in helping new people.
He actually helped out at Gallalop with Kisa. He sat with her at Newcomers Point pretty much the entire time he was there, and just was nicest guy you ever met.
Yep.
So yeah, great choice as a successor for that.
And let's see, of course, Jessica Vosbury she's from Meridies. I think she hops back and forth between Meridies and Trimaris. I'm not sure where she's at right now, but want to give her a shout out. She started up her little Osprey Newcomers Fund kind of on her own, and she's made it continue. And she does some other awesome stuff, a lot of really cool, fun scrolls, and she just is out there helping. She does some background IT stuff with some of the people's shows, the virtual shows during COVID. So she's amazing person, just inside and out. And then the last person I want to give a shout out to is Ellen Lacy. I think that she, in the last 2 years, has, not to say that other people aren't working hard, but man, she's done so much for the virtual Meridies, as helping with all different kinds of things, virtual courts. She's been doing all of these Tuesday socials, and when everything that's going out there, she's been helping try to keep the spirit alive, and I think that's really important. Accessibility is important for people. So, right,
yeah. So you stole all the easy ones. Thank you for that. Ellen has been just like I've been available through COVID, but I haven't needed to do anything because Ellen's had it covered. Everybody's like, Ellen's got it. She's good. She enjoys it every Tuesday night. She's out there, and her Tuesday night social. It was like, hey, we're just gonna hang out. Has grown into like we have Kingdom office hours now in there. The web minister, the Seneschal's out there. She's inviting like other random officers come in and just host a open office hours for the. It's an amazing idea for bridging the gaps. Man, she is great. I'm going to go out of Kingdom.
Kal, you too. You've been amazing trying to keep people.
Stop.
Trying to keep people just involved. I think this is a really cool thing. I'm so excited. We have people from Lockhack and Artemisia and Meridies and just all over the known world involved in tonight's show, which means that they've been watching your show for a time now. So you've been doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thanks. You already gave me like 2 awards. You don't have to say anything else nice about me. It's fine. There's at least 2 things on this collar that came from your and Tim's hand. So I will. You will. Everybody has the crown they remember, and I have 2, and you're now one of them. So, All right, I'm going to do a shout out of Kingdom, but a past guest of mine, whose last name I've forgotten now, Brian O'Houlihan from Onstiora, has been the Kingdom Seneschal the last 2 years for Onstiora. Has helped with the new principality out there. And that's a ton of paperwork to deal with. He's dealt with all the COVID stuff with them. And, I know how hard it has been to crown in the last 2 years, but based on what I've seen from Mitty and others, the Seneschal job isn't easy. Brian has now just picked his successor and is working towards stepping down. And man, kudos to Brian and all his work he's done. Both him and Elena both have just been amazing people for me to get to know personally, but also for Onstiora. So that's my shout out this evening. All right, Ysmay. I always like to end my shows. This is not a remove things, the main thing. I want you to sum up retention in 1 sentence or less for me.
Be excellent to each other and revel on, dudes. Boom.
Boom. Mic drop. Your Grace, you've been amazing tonight. I appreciate your time. I look forward to seeing you at every event I'm at, and just thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much, and thank you guys all for joining us tonight.
There you go. Thank you everybody out there watching. We appreciate you tuning in tonight and every other night. Look for you next week here on Kal-bardr's Corner. Well, I'll be back at my normal time slot and not at this weird 8 o'clock hour. But we appreciate you then and appreciate you now. But for now, this has been Kal and Ysmay in Kal-bardr's Corner. Have a good night, everybody.